So here we go. All right. Hello, I am Isabel Spradlin of abdominaladhesiontreatment.com, and today I am here with Laera Morrow of Laera's Lair of Natural Healing. I love your business name, Laera.
Thanks, Isabel.
And I'm here with Laera because she has a really unique health journey of her own, and she is now a practitioner in many different ways. And I just wanted to kind of open up this discussion with her about what she's done with sort of the neurological issues in her own health and give you all a sense of what she is up to in this world, because I do think that with some of the traumas that can come with extended abdominal distress or surgeries, recovery, all of that good stuff, what Laera has to offer can really come in handy to know about. So thank you so much for being here, Laera.
You're very welcome, Isabel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So my first question is about your story. You have a really unique story with your health, and would you tell us what it is?
Absolutely. I tell anybody all the time when they ask, so what brought you to Portland? Or so what is it that you do? Because it all goes back to how when I was living in New York City 6 years ago, that's when an anti-epilepsy drug, or so-called, I like to put air quotes, anti-epilepsy drug, made my epilepsy literally exponentially worse. And I decided mid-Manhattan was not the best place to be blacking out at random on my way back to catch the L train after late nights of work. So I decided I had to leave the city, and a friend recommended Portland to me because of the awesome alternative healing scene that exists in the city. And so I thought I would give it a try, and I continued seeing neurologists about my condition. At the time, I was having an average of 3 grand mal seizures per day. That's how much levetiracetam, it is the generic version of anti-epilepsy drug Keppra, affected me. And so while I was seeing neurologists and even more specialized epileptologists, I was undergoing neurofeedback therapy, following a ketogenic diet, to having acupuncture sessions, and none of this was having any effect for me. And finally, what I thought was the light at the end of the tunnel, the legalization of medical cannabis, which was just on the horizon at this time. I was really hopeful about it because epilepsy was one of the primary conditions that really made the medical usage of marijuana popular. But unfortunately, while I saw a slight decrease in my seizures, I was still having them on a daily basis. And one point I like to include in my story, because it really emphasizes just the power of the energetic frequencies that we carry. After medical cannabis didn't work for me the way that I hoped that it would, I distinctly remember the moment in time when I was just standing in a New Seasons grocery store, and I just decided to stop fighting my situation. I had at that point been really in a state of constant resistance to my condition, to my everyday life, because I was living in a constant post-ictal state, having such frequent seizures. That is the time when the brain is still not fully recovered. The best comparison I've got is that it's like a state of drunkenness. You don't have your wits fully about you. You're not forming memories. And so to say that I remember this moment in time is actually pretty significant. But after the medical cannabis didn't work, I felt like I had just exhausted all of my options. And I remember it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders when I just decided to accept my life as it was. I said, here I am in a New Seasons. It's an organic grocery store. I'm surrounded by organic food, and although I was not planning on being on disability or food stamps in my late 20s, I had been working as a writer in New York. I obviously had some ambitions outside of that, but I said, I've still got food, clothing, and shelter, and at that, it's organic food I'm surrounded by. And it's funny how that was an immense step for me, and I didn't even realize how immense that was. But the universe responded after I actually raised my frequency and spent 2 weeks just being happier just because of my own change in perspective than I had been for 2.5 years prior. That's when 2 weeks later, a yoga instructor at my local food co-op unsolicitedly came up to me and told me that it came to her that what would put an end to my seizures was applying frankincense oil on the balls of my feet 3 times a day. And uh, needless to say, I was a little bit skeptical. She was a doTERRA representative, which actually I'm selling the products now, but I kind of wrote her off as being an Avon lady of sorts, because I was like, are you kidding me? I've tried A, B, C, D, X, Y, and Z, and you're telling me putting oil on my foot is going to make a difference and stop the seizures that I've been having this whole time. But she gave me a free sample, so I said, hey, it's not like I'm able to work a full-time job. I've got nothing better to do than play along. Why the hell not? To my great surprise, that is when 6 weeks into it, I was down to 1 seizure per week, which at the time, that was an immense improvement that I could hardly believe myself. It's like I just looked up one day and I'd been keeping a journal of when I was having seizures, and I was like, wow, the only thing that's changed is the frankincense. And this is without any other pharmaceuticals that I was taking. I'd been working with, like I said, not just neurologists, but more specialized epileptologists, and nothing was working. All that I was getting from pharmaceuticals was the side effects of lethargy and some other things with a couple of them that I didn't stay on a long time at all. It was only frankincense that I was working with. I had set the medical cannabis aside. I was amazed.
It's an extraordinary story.
I had only ever heard of frankincense, like most of us in the U.S., in the Christmas story. Not only had I been working with neurologists as a patient, but I also went through 13 years of Catholic schooling, and they burned the frankincense in the foyer of the Catholic Church.
Right.
I never knew why this herb had any particular what was special about it. I was always kind of left wondering, why did those wise men think it was so important to bring to baby Jesus? But it turns out those wise guys were onto something. It has been regarded as a very potent healing herb for centuries in the Middle East. But I was never told that, and I maintain the reason I never found out about that is because herbs that come straight from the earth aren't patentable, and so no commissions are involved in prescribing frankincense.
Sure. Yeah, so you have a really extraordinary story, and I think it's an important story to share. And I also know that there can be a lot of skepticism around these types of things, because people can say, well, it worked for Laera, but that doesn't mean it'll work for anybody else on earth. And maybe not, who knows? But the reality is that we have to share our stories, and we have to talk about what has worked for us. And this led you into a lot of the work that you are doing now with others. So give us just a little bit of a rundown about what you do in your business.
I work with clients specifically who are struggling with chronic tension, whether that be anxiety or any other forms of physical or psychological tension that they've been harboring for a good while, because Reiki, a Japanese stress reduction and relaxation technique, addresses just all areas of the body. And I also now provide essential oils consultations and sales, because given my experience with frankincense, the essential oil, that'll always be just one part of what I offered.
Yeah, of course. So a large number of the people who are probably watching this as a result of having found my YouTube channel and all of this work is that a large part of the people who I work with are experiencing abdominal adhesions, or sort of the aftermath of abdominal surgeries. And they can really feel a really significant change in how their nervous system functions after surgery. So for some, it's an increased pain response. And for other, it's a sense of things having really changed dramatically in their body, and they no longer recognize how their body is sort of dealing with life. And so sometimes this turns up as actual neurological conditions or neuropathies, but mostly it creates sort of a feeling that the nervous system has kind of gone haywire, at least a little bit, or at least it's not functioning in the same way it did before surgery. So given your experience with the kinds of therapies that you've personally used and that you use with your clients now, how have you seen change happen for people when their systems are stressed out in these ways?
Well, I've seen an overall just willingness on the part of the client to just stay in a relaxed, mellow, if you will, state. That's one adjective that I have gotten from a few clients. And not only with my Reiki clients, but also in a workshop that I host regularly, Rise Above RX, 3 Keys to Naturally Healing Brain and Nerve Dis-ease, as I like to break the word down. I maintain that it really is just fundamental to healing, that the client really just maintain this openness to the healing, which sounds perhaps obvious. It sounds like logically that would be the case, but it's surprising just how often, just having been living in the US, for however many years, we just, have such a productivity focused work-based society that people often lose sight of just how they're really just up in their left brain. They, are analyzing, they're constantly in go mode. They don't realize just that they're somewhat off balance and not fully centered, and that they perhaps are spending more time in their heads than really it would behoove them to spend, perhaps being in touch with their root chakra, their second chakra, third, and so on, just really having an overall more just balanced state of being. And so,
yeah, so with folks who are experiencing these oftentimes fairly extreme or towards the more extreme end of the spectrum as far as stressed out systems, right? So one of the things is that I think we tend to downplay the process of surgery, not just the cutting. Like we think of surgery as like a cut and a fix and then a sewing back up and then that's the surgery. But the surgery really is the entire experience of even talking about that you might have this surgery and then going through the process of deciding and then showing up in the office and being put under the anesthetic, whether it's local, almost never just local, but, or there are other aspects to the anesthesia, whether you're kind of twilight sedated or all the way out. And then coming back from that, and then the recovery process once the surgery has either been successful to the surgeon's mind or not, and then the differences in what successful means to your surgeon, who really just wants you to heal up from the surgery for that to be a success. And then we're often left with the aftermath, not knowing what to do. It doesn't feel successful because now potentially we have all of these other things happening, bowel obstructions or pain that we can't seem to identify what the heck is going on or why it's there, right? And then, of course, this all of this sort of couched within, like, your nervous system just went through a huge event, no matter how big or small the surgery is. And so with the types of therapies that you offer, what's something that somebody could do at home to start kind of bringing themselves back around into the state that you're talking about? Like, not even like, it's a lot to ask for a state of acceptance, right? Like, now you have to be really ready for that. But there's a lot that can happen without like full acceptance of like where you're at, so what are some things that people could do at home?
Well, first I'll say I agree. It is really a lot to really embrace a state of full acceptance. And I'll be quick to emphasize that the only reason I found myself able to do that is I felt that I had exhausted all options available to me. And so, rather than just live in despair, I was kind of at a place where, well, you know what, I'm just going to put a positive spin on this. I wasn't looking to be on disability, but I'm not working 9 to 5. So
Silver lining.
I guess there's that. Yeah, silver lining, exactly. One of the exercises that I go over attendance with in the workshop I was just referring to involves just consciously just releasing the thoughts out of your head, imagining that, you know, you're this mind chatter that you have in your head. Just it involves some breathing exercises as well, just deeply breathing into the chest, maintaining one's attention on the heart center, and then imagining this mind chatter just dissipating. And the mind chatter that I'm referring to often is thoughts of worry, anxiety. That's why I refer to the mind chatter. Many of the thoughts that we're processing, especially after something as traumatic to the system as surgery can be, just it doesn't do any good to dwell on. It even might just add all the more tension to one's system overall, and focusing such attention on a problem like that actually just brings more energy to it. This is just a law of quantum physics, and just how energy and just directing our own attention to something, that's the effect that it can have. And there are more details to that specific exercise, but that's the capsule summary. And to accompany that, I would recommend that people do experiment with essential oils. Some various oils that are known to be good for the nervous system include frankincense, such as in my case. Frankincense is known to bring a sense of grounding. It's also considered to be the Swiss Army knife of essential oils for many. It just has a plethora of usages that it is really highly regarded for, and it can also amplify the effectiveness of other oils applied along with it, such as lavender. That's perhaps one of the most widely known relaxation inducing herbs that is out there. Lemon, orange, bergamot that people could use. Those are actually the core ones that I would recommend, but people can really just perhaps play with those on their own, applying 3 times a day. I recommend the same place that I was told to apply mine at by my yoga teacher. I'll demonstrate just right here on my big toe mound, which sounded kind of far out to me at the time. Needless to say, I didn't know anything about traditional Chinese medicine, for example, or acupuncture, but that is just that is one really valuable place for experimenting with these oils because of all the nerve endings that exist there.
Oh, okay.
And again,
are there any downsides to playing with the oils?
I have yet to meet anyone who's reported any negative side effects from using them. No.
Okay, great. So if people are interested in you and working with you, do you do distance work or do you only work in person?
I do distance work. Yeah, I offer
how do
the
people find you?
People can contact me emailing Laera at laeraslair.com, and that is LAERA at LAERALAIR.com.
Great. So Laera at laeraslair.com.
Yes.
And it's Laera's Lair of Natural Healing is the name of your business. And
right.
Thank you so much for the time you spent with us today. I know this is a very brief introduction, and there's so many topics that came up that we could dig into deeper, but I think this is a good place for us to sort of wrap it up for today. And I hope that if people do have questions or want to work with you, that they reach out and contact you. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Isabel.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. I'll see you on our next interview or blog post. In the meantime, I hope you learned something new. I hope you got something out of this, as always, that helps you think about moving forward in your recovery from whatever abdominal distress you are working with. And I will see you later. Bye.